All right, next project, and the dog's about to get obnoxious, so hold that thought. All right, dog's fed, so the worst that should happen is she'll start crunching. So anyway, what I have here, I have half a dozen pieces of 1/4-inch thick alder. I got these from a from a hobby sheet at the Home Depot. And the nice thing about it is it's relatively inexpensive, and it's a reasonably attractive wood. It's got nice grain on it and everything. It looks pretty good. So anyway, what I did was I cut some blanks down into squares. They're about 2 3/4 inches thick. 2 3/4 inches square. But the exact size doesn't matter. But what I'm planning to do is cut these down just a hair more. So anyway, as we go along, you're probably gonna figure out where we're going with this. But for now, I'm going to keep it a surprise. So anyway, next step is to go out and put some miters on the corners, and I will show you how I'm planning to do that. So here we go. All right, here's the next step. And you don't have to do this on a table saw. You can do it with a miter gauge or something else, but table saw is going to give me the most accurate results. And what I've got here is a little digital angle gauge, and I'm going to go ahead and zero it. And what that's going to do is going to register a 0 on my table saw top. And I've tilted my blade to what I think is 45 degrees. And I'm hoping you can see that. 45.3. That's probably going to be good enough because I'm all the way up against the stop. So I'm hoping that the margin of error on here is going to be all right. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 45-degree bevel on 2 sides of these alder pieces. So anyway, I'll be back and show you what the next step is after that. All right, so I went out and, came back in from mitering 2 sides on these, one with the grain and one across the grain. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 2 of these pieces, and I'm probably going to use these 2 because they have the different looking grain on them. One to be the top piece for this box that I'm making, and the other one to be the bottom piece for this box. Right now they're about 2 5/8, hair over 2 5/8 inches square. And what'll happen is when I run these through the table saw again, I'm just going to move the table saw in a little bit, and what'll happen is it'll cut off here, and I'll have a perfect square that's mitered at 45 degrees on all the bottom faces, which is exactly what I want. But when I do that, what I'm going to have to do is these pieces that are going to be the sides to the box. What I have to do is I have to make sure that I'm cutting them across the grain the same size that I'm cutting these, the top and bottom pieces, but then I've got to make them slightly larger. In this particular case, 1/8 of an inch larger, 1/8 of an inch larger than these, because I need that for, that's the width of my table saw blade. And I'll explain exactly why I'm going to do that here in a little bit. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, before I go out, I am going to mark on every one of these with an arrow pointing at the edge that I want to cut. That way I don't make any mistakes when I'm cutting these. And there will be no mistakes when I cut these, is basically what's coming down to, or I want to minimize the number of mistakes. So anyway, with that, I will come back and show you the next step. So, okay, 2 pieces cut square, and 4 pieces cut an eighth of an inch out of square on the vertical. Final size on these is, let's see, just a hair under 2.5 inches, 2 and 7/16. So, and again, the actual final size doesn't matter. It's really going to be what you want to do. But like I said, watch the video all the way through, and that way you'll get an idea of where I'm going. So anyway, next step is to take these 4 side pieces and figure out a pleasing grain pattern, and then glue them up. So if you hang on a minute, I'll show you what that's all about. So be right back. There's this Italian restaurant near my house. Now, not only do they make really, really good pizza, but they make this kick-ass Nutella cheesecake. So, yeah. Take a look at that. Good stuff. We'll be right back. All right, if you've never clamped up a box with mitered corners or a set of mitered corners before, this is probably the easiest way to do it, especially if you have multiple pieces that you're putting together. What I like to do is I like to take a piece of scrap wood that I know has a straight edge on it, and then I will line a couple of pieces of my of my sides up, and then I will take a piece of painter's tape, and I've got to push together as snugly as I can, and I also got to push together up tightly against this, and I'm going to put this painter's tape on them. Okay, so first joint is done. So now I'm just going to take the second one, and I'm going to bump it up against these two, and again get it as tight as I can, and then tear off a piece of tape. Tape across that joint. And right now this is just the prelim work, so don't worry about don't worry about anything else. Okay, and now the last piece. This is just to hold things in place while working on them. And I messed that one up, as you probably saw. Okay, so got it there. Got it there. All four pieces are snug up against my guide, and all four pieces are taped together about as tightly as I think I can get them. So I'm going to tear off this little bit of extra here. I just want it out of the way. It doesn't matter if I'm losing some here. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to take a long piece of painter's tape, and actually in this case probably two long pieces, and I want to run them all the way across with a little bit of leftover at the end. And that's it. We've got a nice little quasi-cube. Oh, that took me a little bit longer than I expected it to. However, I don't have any, well, I got some glue squeeze out in there, but like I said, when I pull the tape, it'll come right up. So anyway, at this point, I put it down and I walk away from it. So, all right, here's my almost cube. And the only thing I've done between the time I've unclamped it and now was take it outside, and I hit it with the random orbit sander and with some 150 grit paper. That was just to get the high spots and any glue marks I had off. And the next thing I have to do is I have to go out, and I've actually got to cut the lid off. And that's going to set me up. Well, actually, let me back up a second. I've got mitered corners on here, and that means I've got end grain contacting end grain. So what I want to do is I want to take these little really thin strips of maple, and I'm going to cut some, make some cuts along the side here and put the maple in there. But before I do that, because if I don't cut the top off, I'm going to have uncindered cuts basically for this, and I want those to be as centered as possible. So anyway, the next thing to do is go out and cut the top of this box off, and I'm going to cut it off a 1/2 inch from the edge, and that just means I'm going to set my table saw fence up and I'm just going to run the box through it like that, 2, 3, and 4, and that'll take the top of it off. And after I do that, I'll come back and show you how I'm going to work the spline miters. So, be right back. All right, top's cut off. Just a very, very slight recess in the top. That's exactly what I want. And excuse me. And you know, nice little box right here. But I've got a pretty flush fit on here. And again, that's what I'm looking for. Is where I'm at right now. So the next step, like I said, is to cut some splines in this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape the lid to the box, and then I'm going to take it outside on the table saw. This is my splining jig, and you can see where the saw has actually come up on there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this in here just like that, and I'm going to run the box through the table saw on all the sides. So not only do the sides going this way get splined, but the sides going this way are going to get splined as well. And once I've done that, and I'm not going to cut it very deep, just you know, maybe 3/16 of an inch. And once I'm done with that, that's what these little tiny strips of maple are for, and I'll show you that once I've done that. So be right back. All right, there we go. Just got, as you can see, 4 of the little rare earth 1/8 inch rare earth magnets in the lid, and 4 more in the main body of the box. So the next thing I got to do is I got to go out and I got to hit it with some 220 just to take off, you know, some of the sanding marks. And I want a fairly smooth surface for the next step, and that one is going to be a little kind of off the wall. I'm hoping it's going to work. This is pretty much a test piece anyway, so we're going to see what happens. So be right back. All right, it might be starting to come together for you right now, but what I'm going to do, well, actually, let me back up a tiny little bit. What I did was I grabbed a sheet of printer labels, and these are specifically intended for inkjet, and I peeled all the labels off the sheet, and then I went ahead and I printed a mirror image of all the numbers 2 through 6 and a little dragon face. And that's because I'm going to try to decorate this box with these numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm taping this dragon head to the top of the box. I'm going to do my best to center it. And anyway, what happened was when I printed off the ink, when I printed off my file, I printed it onto the paper, the side of the paper here, that what am I trying to say? Come on, man, use your words. That the labels were stuck to. So the ink just gets sprayed on there, but the ink doesn't really dry because it doesn't soak into this, it just sits on the surface. So what I'm going to do now is, by taping this on here and then using the ruler, I should push the ink that was on there into the wood. And we will find out in just a couple of seconds if this works, or at least how well it worked. So, moment of truth. There we go. Not too bad. A little off center, but that's okay. That's something I can live with. So, anyway, what I want to do now is just set this aside. It's soaked into the wood. I've done all the finish sanding on the wood. Oh, and by the way, while I was at it, I went out and just knocked the sharp corners off the edges, just to give it a slightly more finished look. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around on the main body of the box, and I'm going to put the rest of the numbers on here. I am going to use a die to make sure I get all the numbers lined up in the right order, but obviously if this is the number 1 face. Actually, hang on a second. Yeah, see, that's number 1, so that gives me the number 6 on the opposite side, and so on. So anyway, let me go ahead and get that done, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like after it's completely finished. So, hold that thought. All right, I'm done, and before I, before I go any further, I just wanted to show you this, and this is a piece of alder I had, and this is, well, it's a little bit more than a scrap, but I wanted to test the ink transfer technique on the same kind of wood that I was using on the box. And you can see the dragon head here. And what I did here was, instead of using the same finish I used on the box, I actually drizzled some Danish oil on there, rubbed it in with a paper towel. And then I came back and buffed it. I buffed the upper half of it. You can see where the upper half got partially erased, but the rest of it looks fine. The Danish oil will obviously not smear the ink, which is an important thing that I just learned. So anyway, going to the box that I did finish, and which is right here, and I finished it with just some spray on polyurethane, nice, simple, and quick. And it only takes, I can get a couple of coats on in a short amount of time. But I think the box came out looking overall pretty good, despite me messing up the ink transfer in a couple of spots. But overall, yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. And as you can see, adding the polyurethane deepened the colors, although I think, looking at it now, I would have gone with a brighter, I think I would have tried a brighter color, maybe a blue on here for the transfer. I think that might work a little better. But anyway, anyway, this is just a simple little box, that's all. And, holds a nice little handful of dice is all. That's all I wanted it to do. And overall, though, I'll give myself a C or a C plus for this project. I ended up kind of messing around with it, doing some things that I was trying to figure out. For example, the splines on the mitered corners there didn't come out. I don't know if I was, well, you know what? I like the way they look, but they didn't work out as easily as I would have liked them to. So I don't know. But better, you know what? Better doing something like that on a test piece, what I consider to be a test piece, than it's something I really wanted to have come out looking good. So anyway, with that, I guess that's it. And I've got another project to finish up today that is not going to happen tonight. Tonight, it's going to be chill time. So I think there's a new episode of Tabletop on YouTube. So with that, I'll talk to you later. Bye.